Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's PDF44 coming into another video. All right, I want to talk about. I just saw LeBron James's press conference after the preseason game against the Warriors. He looked like he was kind of over it. I'm not talking about over basketball, but over preseason as a whole. He talked about that. That basically he prefers practice games over preseason because preseason games don't really teach him anything. And in practice, you can kind of make mistakes, and then in the moment the mistake is made, stop, discuss it, tell whom what, and then they can run those same plays again until they get them right. And it's more of a teaching tool than, say, the preseason is, where preseason you're going to use lineups that you're probably never going to use, experimenting and things of that nature. It's just not the same. And then, from my perspective, I'll add in, you're going up against competitive players that have the agenda to make statements even before the season about where they stand and about what their intentions are. When you run out there and your intention is to deliberately lose so that you can see certain scenarios, or so that you can put certain players to the test, what you're ultimately doing is giving somewhat of a competitive edge to an otherwise very, very serious opponent. Maybe it's a different vibe if you're playing a team from the Eastern Conference or somebody you don't think is going to have playoff aspirations. But in general, it really isn't any different, because at the end of the day, you're going up against teams with different agendas. Maybe you're running a team out there who wants to run their center and play in the post for 40 minutes. Now you got to adjust to that. That's what happened with us yesterday when we were going against the Warriors. They were running zones to start the quarter. So it's to where the Lakers are trying to get Russie and LeBron and see how they look together without AD and how they can make that work. The Golden State Warriors threw a whole monkey wrench in there and had them running the zone out there every time they were out there together. Now, maybe that helps them in the grand scheme of things, since they may be zoned against, but more so it kicked the Lakers out of what it is they were ultimately trying to see, and had them running around there doing things, that made them more so reactionary rather than what it is they were trying to do. So that's just what I was throwing in. That's how I saw it. Preseason is fun. Young teams, it's important for them to go out there and run up against real talent, young talent, old or bigger guys rather, to see how they mesh up. So I like the preseason as a fan. I love it. I don't mind watching the games, even though they don't matter. It gives you a prelude to see, and it helps players shake off the rust. It is good to see somebody other than your teammates and run up against other guys. So I can totally see where certain players will see the opposite view on that. But I think from a learning perspective and a teaching perspective, I can totally see where a guy like LeBron James, who's seen it all, done it all, doesn't really have much use for preseason, especially in year 19. He doesn't want to play in these games, and he certainly doesn't want to go up against Steph Curry, and not be competitive. Do you understand what I'm saying? Not be intentional on winning, or have to adjust to certain things because he's turned the competitive edge up on his end. It's a situation for me where I just say, I think preseason is fine, but I can totally see where Braun is coming from. I totally get it. So yeah, and at the end of the day, fans, we tend to have a different perspective. I was looking at certain forums and things, like I always do, and seeing fans talk about coaches and saying guys need to be fired because of how they're performing in the preseason. It's like they don't fully understand. The average fan doesn't fully understand what the preseason is about, and what to expect and what to look for. And that's what I try to do on this channel, is try to help people in that regard. It's like, your preseason games, you may not win those, and it's okay to be frustrated about seeing your team lose, but understand the preseason, you may literally have lost on purpose. You may have literally saw your coach run some stuff that was going to bring him no success so that he could see certain things happen out there with certain players. So you're not going to see that in the regular season, I'd imagine. I'd hope. But in the preseason, yeah. I remember watching as a little kid and be mad about preseason games. We lost all our preseason games and went on to win the championship. It's happened. It's happened in several situations, not just the Lakers. So preseason tells us nothing. Sometimes, they lose on purpose, and sometimes those are the strategies that help teams ultimately know what to do when they need to know what to do. So be patient with your teams. Be patient with everybody in preseason. And I'll tell you this, first half of the season, it's kind of used in a similar way. You will see certain things being experimented with, certain lineups and stuff like that, because coaches still want to continue to learn their roster, especially with new teams. So, it's important to be patient. Just like we look at the preseason for young teams who have players that are very very young, and they're really really good. I hate to tell you this, but your whole season is going to be treated like a preseason. You look at like a team like the Rockets. Your whole season is a preseason, because essentially what the team's agenda is for this year is to find out who they believe in and who they can ultimately keep on the team to pay big money to, and who they have to ultimately let go of. They have to establish that. They can't just necessarily go all in and start winning. It doesn't work that way. They have to learn what they have. So yeah, your whole year is going to be a preseason. You're going to see strange things happen, and you're going to be like, what the hell? Why aren't we more so competitive? Why don't I see this player, that player? It's because the agenda may be to try to see something that maybe they wouldn't normally see, or try to get something done that otherwise winning doesn't help. The NBA's done a great job of trying to get tanking out of the game, obviously, by changing the formatting with the NBA draft lottery. But it's still in teams' best interest to maybe not be, in the playoffs if they have a certain scenario, a certain set of circumstances. Maybe it is best to walk away from the season with the lottery pick. And, we've seen it in the past many times. As fans, sometimes we root for losing. But, at the end of the day, not everybody understands that. Not everybody sees the strategy and what it takes to ultimately put yourself in the best competitive situation as a team, especially given the fact that not everybody has the same plane. Not everybody can work from the same point of view. The Lakers are definitely going to have a better option of players than, say, the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers have to do different things. So as fans, we just got to be patient and understand it's not fair out there. and it is what it is. So, yeah, that's what I got, man. Anyway, that's my tangent. The preseason, I get it, Ron. I get it, but it's good for some teams and it's good for some players. Just gotta roll with the punches. I don't like the fact that we have to go up against a Steph Curry and expect not to win, and while he's out there trying to knock our heads off. Nah. You see that in the preseason too. You'll notice that some teams have the agenda of winning. They think that getting the win is the best option, so they just throw their players out there, and that's the agenda. And then you'll see them go up against a team who wants to, as I said, play their center for 40 minutes and see what he can do. It's a bad combination, and it doesn't give you a prelude of what to expect in the season. So that's what I want to let y'all know. My name is BDL44. Thank y'all for watching. I'm out.